Thank you all for joining us for our second program and event roundtable. We have another great turnout. We're currently at 51. Most of you know me. I'm Nikki, the Director of Training and Get Outdoors PA with PRPS. Because we have such a large group, we will not do individual introductions. However, if you do decide to speak up, just let us know who you are and what organization or department you're with. We had a really good turnout for our last program and event roundtable, and we had a lot of great discussion about what people are going through, kind of how they're managing their programs. I was able to finally, and I apologize that it took so long, I was finally able to get out the questions and discussion topics, and I emailed that out to everyone yesterday and put it up on our website today. So if anyone was not on last roundtable, you can access both the recording and the chat discussion. We'll be doing the same thing today. So if there's a question that you want us to ask, you can either unmute yourself and speak up, or you can put it in the chat box and we will, I'll pull it up in the discussion. You can choose to reply to any questions or topics that we bring up verbally or in the chat box. If it's in the chat box, it will be included in the PDF that we distribute. Some of the topics we discussed last time, and I don't know if we need to bring them up again, we discussed staff being laid off or furloughed, and who made that discussion or who made that decision, whether it was council, board, or your just department in general. And I know there was a mix of that at the time, and that was about 10 days ago. Another thing were a lot of virtual classes were happening. So because there was such a large amount of virtual classes, the majority of them were at no cost. I think an interesting discussion now would be, are you still continuing those virtual classes, and or are you looking to continue them into the summer, and will there be fees? Just to go over the rest of the topics we hit on last time and decide what we want to talk about this time. Of course, now that schools are closed for the remainder of the year, how is that affecting your programming? Because we talked last time about who utilizes schools for their programs, and if so, when students go back, what would happen? We know that they're not going back for the school year, so what's happening now? We know some of you work directly in the schools, so how are you handling things? There was discussion about sponsorship and refunds. So are you refunding programs? I think most of us said, yes, we're refunding them, putting a credit on their account. And there was discussion on what did you do with sponsorship? So if you had sponsors for your program, did you refund their money, or did you use them for a future event in the year? Large scale events. We all have amazing large scale events in the summer, whether they're about the 4th of July, kicking off summer, or even ending the summer. You know, and everyone was kind of tentative about what are they going to do moving forward. And of course, we all have a newsletter, or I'm sorry, you all have a newsletter that goes out that has spring, summer, and you're probably starting to think about what's going in a fall newsletter. What did you do? Some of you stopped it. Some of you put information saying all of this is pending. So that was a discussion topic as well. And then of course, field rentals came into the mix as far as, are you refunding? Are you just closing off your fields? And how do you close off fields to rental groups when you have just general public going out and playing a pickup game when technically they shouldn't? So there's a good mix of questions there. If anyone has a topic they want to start off with, again, please speak up or put it in the chat box and we'll start the discussion that way, because these are the topics that you guys want to know about. So we want to hear from you. Anyone?
I did want to know, we're going to start, or we're going to offer a few programs to charge for, to see if that works. We have a couple, like a babysitting course and some like first aid stuff. I just wanted to know if anybody else has moved in that direction of charging for some things.
Jennifer, are they going to be virtual babysitting program and stuff?
Yes.
So is it the Red Cross
It
babysitting?
is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. That's excellent. Is anyone else doing that type of virtual programming? Obviously, the Red Cross babysitting course has a fee to it. I believe the Red Cross does charge something for that.
Right. So we are going to charge for it. And it's sort of, you can like set a time frame for it, and it's kind of open, and then they email you. We email the participants the link, or our instructor does, our coordinator does. I was just wondering, not specifically CPR, but if anybody was moving towards charging for some programs at this point, or even thinking about it.
Can you hear me?
We can.
So hi, my name's Tyler. I'm with the Township of Upper St. Clair. So we do have a community recreation center here in Western PA. We haven't done any programming in which we're charging for, and that's due to, most of our staff at this point are on a furlough. So we haven't really called in anybody to do that type of programming. But what we have done is through the Allegheny Regional Asset District, there's a lot of partners like the zoo and things that we've tried using, contacting members and reaching out about some of those resources that, because we actually get funding from them as well. So it's kind of an opportunity for us to highlight some of our partners' work and things of, of that nature. So that's just some of the things we've done since we've been closed.
Jane Kunkel said she was informed yesterday that CPR is shut down through May. Is that Red Cross training, Jane? And I'm curious if that's because yes, that's primarily because there's the physical contact of the training. I'd be curious if lifeguard training, there are some digital classes that you can take and then test certain components later. I will look that information up and include some of that information in the discussion chat that we send out. Some other chat discussion while other people are working on any other virtual paid programming that they're doing. Karen Schreiber is saying she's having a hard time convincing the higher ups about canceling a large scale event on June 13th. What points could she make what points could she used to make them think that this event is not a good idea in the present environment? So concerns about a large scale event around social distancing and stuff like that. So if anyone has some ideas of maybe how she could convince them to actually cancel or methods she could make. And then Ryan, what are organizations doing regarding signage at their facilities to continue to promote social distancing? Additionally, for communities with multilingual residents, how are you reaching out to those residents, and what challenges have you been getting? What challenges are you facing getting that information out?
And Nikki, I asked that question because we've done the NRPA signs, we've done the PRPS signs, and we're still having segments of our community, which we're about 55% Hispanic in the city of Allentown. We've gotten to 3-foot by 4-foot signs that look like this. And I know it's hard, and I can email it out to everyone, but it's a big danger sign with the key points. And that got put up at all of our major parks. And when we were observing over the weekend, we're still getting a large number without masks and things like that. So I was just curious as to what challenges other people may have had and how they're communicating that.
I couldn't tell by that sign. Is that all in English, or was that a multi-language sign?
It is in English. The Spanish versions are still in production.
Okay.
All of our social media has been in English and Spanish.
Okay. Just a reminder, if you want to speak, there's the chat box, but also you can unmute yourself in the lower left-hand corner. We have 71 participants, so I know a lot of you probably have some great feedback, so please speak up. I will say that also in the chat box, Tammy let me know that some great information came out from the Red Cross regarding certifications. So we'll make sure to include that in the PDF we send out following today's roundtable. Also, you should have received today an email from PRPS regarding the legislative alert regarding the waiver for background checks. If you did not receive that, please check the PRPS website. If it's not up there yet, it will be. And please contact your legislator. It's going to help us with moving forward with summer staffing and letting them know about the concerns as far as the process with background checks. Because as you all know, the method that they're working on right now of getting rid of the provisional hiring timeframe is unacceptable. So please check out that email from PRPS, visit the website, and please contact your legislator. Ken mentioned that the CDC has recommendations for park signs. That website he has listed in the chat box, but also I'll make sure it comes out. So that might be helpful, Ryan, as well. There's also some signs for playground closures. So we will make sure that this is great information. So all of this, I will try to get it out tomorrow if possible, as far as signage for parks and closures. The one that Christy sent is from a park in Pittsburgh. So bear with me. I'm just trying to keep up with all the chat box so I can make sure I'm giving you all the information you need. One thing to note too is PRPS is working on a microsite. So all the information, these websites, the signage will be on the microsite. So if you're looking for that kind of information, that should be up. The microsite is up today. I don't believe it's live. We're working on making sure that all the COVID resources are up there, all the information that we've sent out previously regarding whether it's CDC recommendations, information from ACA, NRPA, our state government, the stuff that PRPS itself has put out, all of that information will be on that microsite. Aaron Long has asked, is anyone experiencing instructors who initially offered virtual program and are now deciding to charge participants? They have an instructor who is apparently doing that. So have you had problems with your instructors who are now needing financial payment for their virtual programs that you wanted to offer for free?
So our instructors, some of them have chosen to put out a virtual tip jar, but nobody's directly charging our township, Northampton Township. I'm Jen from Northampton Township, by the way. So that's how our instructors are handling it. And once one of them did that, I sort of suggested that if they needed it, the help financially, and they said sometimes it's great and sometimes it's not, but sometimes it normally covers their fee for one class, especially the exercise classes.
What is the platform for the virtual tip jar?
That is a solid question. I am not real tech savvy. So I will have to look. I can look real quick for you. And
if you wouldn't mind finding that information, even if you can't do it now, if you like later in the day, if you could email it to me.
I know. I'm sorry. I did remember. One is quite a few do Venmo.
Okay.
And then somebody does YouTube or PayPal.
Okay. Great.
I think to be more specific about my question, we had our spring registration had begun, and this particular program was able to get in 3 days worth of classes in person. So now we're looking at, obviously, we feel as the township that these people paid for in-person classes that they did not receive. So we're looking at doing either a full refund or a prorated refund. But now this instructor feels that while initially he had said, I'm going to do this from my basement via Zoom, it'll be good for the kids, it'll keep me busy. Now he wants to, he's open to refunding some, but he wants to charge for the remainder of the program that he did virtually. And we're kind of butting heads about it. And I just wanted to know if anybody else was experiencing anything like that.
I mean, any sessions that we could finish virtually, we did, and the instructor was paid for that. Those were sessions that were already in progress. And if they had a way to finish virtually, then we did that. But that completed that session. And from this point forward, if they're offering virtual classes, which we're quite frankly asking them to, then they set up the virtual tip jars or something like that. But anything we could complete, like driver's ed was one, SAT classes, we paid the remainder of those sessions that were taught virtually.
Great. Tanya Brown from Mechanicsburg said, we have one that we asked to do virtually and he wants paid. We're not doing it. We are paying our exercise programming instructors for their time. It is a weekly program. One and done programs, we are not paying them. And Derek from Montgomery Township, we are not involved in any virtual programs with financial components. Last time we also discussed using third-party vendors. Is anyone currently using third-party vendors to do either virtual, or are you scheduling summer programs with third-party vendors? One of the examples was NAES for youth sports programming. Is anyone currently working with any third-party vendors for programming? Not just independent instructors, but more organized individuals or organized companies.
Who needs to chime in here, because I'm not sure the name of that company we were talking about this morning that we're going to start working with, but it is a third party. What is that, Sue? She I don't know if she can hear her. She looks, it was a physical therapy company that's nationwide. What is it? Do you know?
It's called Physical Therapy, but it's spelled with an F instead of a P.
So we were told that that's a nationwide company, and he emailed us somewhere along the line and wanted to do some virtual programs. So obviously we're trying to set that up because he wants to do it free, and it's going to offset some of the exercise programs that we currently do. So we sent him the list of all of our exercise programs that we're doing and see where he can fill in the gaps. I'm not sure how it's going to work out, but we're going to try.
Great. If you, Tug, if you have a link to them, would you mind sending?
Absolutely.
That would be great.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Jennifer said that they have provided links to third parties that they've worked with, but registration is right through them. It's just a resource trying to help the businesses that they work with. Gina at Lower Merion, they're using Soccer Shots and Young Rembrandts to run virtual programs. They're charging a fee.
This is Lauren at Conshohocken Borough. We are using Soccer Shots too, same as Lower Merion. That program started at the end of March, and it's a 6-week program. Going forward, we won't be doing a virtual program. We've made adjustments to our summer sessions to look at starting possibly after June.
We have a good question here. Mike, how far out have people canceled their programs and events at this point? Through the end of April due to the stay-at-home orders, May, June? And some people have already answered in the chat box. Katie Kohler, they've canceled through Memorial Day in Upper Morelands. Tug, oh, nope, sorry. Jane Kunkel through May. Christy Owens through April right now. Judy and Spring Township through the end of May. And Lansdale has canceled through May. Limerick has canceled through the end of the month. Forks Township, cancellation through May. So yeah, a lot of cancellations. It's looking like the majority is through the end of May. Is that the consensus I'm thinking? Anyone have any feedback or thoughts? Are you being forced to cancel, or is this a decision you're making?
At Lower Providence, we're actually canceled through April 30th, but now we're considering through the end of May, and it's coming down from our supervisors and our township managers, our township manager. It's nothing that our department is making. It's all coming from the higher ups. So as of currently, we haven't done anything since March 17th. Everything's been canceled. We're now, this week, we're in talks of canceling up through May, possibly June. We're not sure.
Some people are canceled through May, evaluating June next week. Some people say their next event is July. I know this is not our summer camp call, but for those of you who are canceled through June, is that including summer camps?
We're considering pushing back our summer camp, depending on what the school districts tell us. We haven't heard from the school districts yet, because our summer camp is at the, we run them at the schools.
Mm-hmm.
So we haven't gotten official notice yet. So we're kind of waiting to hear from them.
And please,
So
oh, sorry, go ahead, Karen.
no, we were just trying to come up with some backup plans about shortening our camps, you know, doing a 4-week camp starting the mid to end of July, but we just don't know. Everything's kind of on hold because of everything that's going on worldwide.
This is Christy from Silver Spring. We had a group chat yesterday with a lot of local rec departments that run outdoor programs. We currently run an indoor program through the school, same thing. And we're looking at an outdoor program as like an alternative option if we can't be in like an isolated place. I don't know if we'll meet again or not, but it was a really good constructive conversation for us trying to plan an outdoor program because we're so used to being inside. So might be something to think about.
That's a great idea. Anyone else? And if I have missed any of your chat questions or feedback on the chat box, I apologize. Please post it again. A lot of feedback came through with the cancellation or the cancellation postponement date. I think there might have been something about work permits. Jane said that Lower Dolphin isn't providing work permits at the time in Dauphin County. So they're working on a way to apply online. So obviously, you know, one thing we talked about was Act 47, but the other thing is talking about work permits. And if you can't go into schools or process work permits, that could be an issue. There's also, you know, staff training, whether you're doing camp or just general programming. Are any of you doing staff training online?
I started looking at options, but I haven't committed to anything yet. But yes, I have looked into it.
Great.
Nikki, one of the things I've started to do is I've actually set up a Google Classroom, which are free. If anybody has Gmail accounts, you'd have to check with what your township, permits or allows. But I set up a Google Classroom, and that was, free for me to set up. And it has sections of very basic training elements. And there's another site you can use. It's called Soapbox. That's also free through Google. And that allows you to record yourself and your screen at the same time. And then that produces like a URL. And I've been able to, record basic processes and things that I do when I have my general training. Not that I've really been bringing people on right now, but I am prepared, should I need to be able to do it online.
Fantastic. I'm just going to follow up with some more chat stuff here. Christy, some quick questions for you. I think that you could probably answer is, do you mind providing the contact for the outdoor program group you spoke with? If you want, you can email me and I'll include it in the document we send out. But also, for those of you who've run outdoor programs in the past, what do you do about weather? Do you ask participants to stay home? Do you have an alternate plan for that? I know in the past, sometimes when I've had outdoor program, we can still utilize a pavilion for shelter until it gets extremely bad weather as far as tornado watches or extreme lightning events. But Christy, you may be able to speak more towards that since you just had that discussion yesterday.
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit. I don't know if Donna or Audrey or if any of you want to speak up about kind of what you guys were, walking us through, but that was probably like one of my biggest questions was how you handle storms and things, because we're used to preparing for like fire drills and intruders and things like that. And I think the biggest thing that was like my takeaway was that having an indoor space or somewhere with a roof where we could actually get to, I mean, obviously it's got to be better if we can get to a space that's behind like block walls and things like that. So we're considering our fire company, and we're going to use their social hall potentially as like an alternative if there's like a storm or whatnot. So if you don't have a community center like us, we kind of rely on the fire company for stuff like that, and they have a nice sized pavilion. One thing that Josh pointed out was that he uses pop-up tents and things like that for protection from rain or sun exposure, because sun exposure was another thing we were concerned about. And Kelsey had mentioned about like water, making sure the kids are hydrated. So we're so used to escaping to the air conditioning like at times that we need throughout the day. So for us, it's a little bit different because now we're preparing for like full like outdoor exposure. So we walked through it, and I think it made a lot of sense, and it seems like it's something that's going to be doable. It's just we got to put a solid plan in place, and I think it's good because who knows, maybe a year from now we might want to run an outdoor program.
Nikki, this is Tanya. In regard, I wasn't on the call with Christy and them, but we basically stole our summer camp program from Audrey years and years ago. And one of the things that Audrey was always concerned about was we had nowhere to go in other than a pavilion in a storm. So we had the backup of the schools, but Josh right now is developing a plan. If we can't go to our own schools, then he's coming up with a list of where we possibly could go in Mechanicsburg. So churches, the VF, or we have a community center that's through a church, things like that, trying to get a backup plan. But we're hoping we have some direction at the end of this week as to what's going to happen with where we're going. But we are trying to develop these plans in advance, so it's not last minute.
So when I started the camp, like Tug said, we had the pavilion, but what we did for like really bad storms was we utilized the pool house. So because it has cinder blocks, so it is a place that you can go. We're fortunate here in Camp Hill that I was able to get a cabin built in the back of our park, that we can utilize as well. But if we were to have really bad storms, we still do go down to the pool house because it is cinder block walls and it can protect us. And the parents all know that depending on the weather, they know where to go. If it's rain, they know to go up to the back of the park where the cabin is. But if it's severe weather, we keep in touch with them and they know to go down to the pool house that's where the children would be.
And I think that's a great point, just being in contact and making sure that people know ahead of time where to go in a weather event. A lot of the programs I've worked in the past, we were out in the weather. So it didn't matter, even if it was a heavy rain, if it was an outdoor program, they were in the rain. But again, like you said, having that, lightning and weather that would be detrimental to the participants. If the parents are aware and they know where to go and there's an action in advance, that's a huge benefit. So those are fantastic ideas.
Audrey, I'm just curious, how many kids are in your camp? How big are these indoor facilities that you're going to?
The camp is 60 children. So the cabin, it can hold up to that many children and the counselors included. Now the pool house, that was a challenge before they built the snack shack, which is a big community place that people can eat while they go to the pool. We actually were utilizing the 2 different locker rooms, which you can imagine how a changing room is at a pool house, and the center area where the check-in desk is. So we had to be pretty creative on what to do with the kids in those spaces, playing Pictionary and all kinds of crazy games that you can play in a very small space. But it worked. Kids are really, really good about that. It's more the parents you have to keep calm. I think it's more the kids are so flexible. You guys all know that.
At South Middleton, when we would have inclement weather, we would utilize the meeting room at the township building. And I would have used to a TV with DVDs, and we would pretty much just watch movies and bring our board games up. And that was the options for the children to either watch the movie or play the board games. The other summer when it was really bad, we had like a week of rain and our park was flooded. We actually utilized the garage here at the township. We backed all of our township vehicles out and used that, which gave them the opportunity to be able to do a little more than just watch a movie.
Fantastic. All right, I just want to go to some more stuff in the chat box. Jane Kunkel mentioned that she called the FBI clearance unit's local number, and it says it's being done manually through paper and results are being mailed. So you may want to apply soon to have that done in time. So if you are working on staff paperwork, if people are getting fingerprints, you may want to expedite that process. Thank you for sharing that. We all know how difficult that can be. And Samantha, hi Samantha. She has started.
I was on the phone, but I couldn't unmute, so.
Okay. It's good to see you. A friend from a long time ago that I haven't seen in years. So do you want to go ahead and ask your question?
Oh, I just asked, I'm starting a peer study for a borough in northeastern Pennsylvania that has taken over a large park with a number of soccer and softball fields. And I just want to be able to advise them on whether to look at scheduling, having rentals for softball teams and soccer teams. They have also scheduled tournaments in the past. Is there a date that we're kind of thinking that it's going to be available to do that? And can we keep it open for just unorganized play, just flying kites and things like that now? Just disorganized play and do a soft opening, so to speak?
So I can speak to what we said last time before we have any feedback. Last time, Matt, and I can't remember where he's from, he manages 27 athletic fields, and he said all field rentals were canceled up to April 30th. Audrey mentioned field rental refunds were given through April. Tammy mentioned canceled through April. I think the big thing last time was a question was asked about, you know, if we're not letting organized teams use the field, the complaint was that then unorganized groups are using the field. And I believe that from what I've seen on some social media from Center Region Parks and Recreation is there's still large groups that are using the field, even though there's signage and, you know, there's been messaging that, you know, large groups shouldn't be on the fields at this time. We all know that people don't listen. Whether you sign it, you tell them, you could smack them in the face. Some people just don't listen. So I don't know the answer to that, but from what our call was about 10 days ago, most of it was canceled in April. So has anyone changed or have any other information on that? No.
We're still waiting to hear what the governor has to say by the end of April. So I haven't been told to do anything, canceling anything into May yet, as far as rental or usage of our fields.
Okay.
What about tournaments? Does anybody still have tournaments or 5Ks scheduled on their parks this summer?
We were supposed to have a 5K the end of May, and that group that is organizing it is considering doing it over the Labor Day weekend instead of Memorial Day weekend, but they haven't made the final decision yet.
We at Northampton canceled any group rentals through May because we figured a 5K is just asking for trouble. That was Mother's Day.
There's some other feedback in the chat box. We have Allentown, Spring Township closed through May, both of them. In, excuse me, Towamencin, there's putting messaging out saying, if you don't stop gathering in large groups, we'll have to close the parks completely. Kevin in, where was it? In Harrisburg City, the parks are open for walking and running, but no permits have been approved. City of Allentown, again, canceled all organized activities through May. But special events are through a different department, but also canceled through May. So I assume special events mean tournaments.
Okay, thanks.
I'm sorry. In the borough of Westchester, all special event applications come through the Parks and Rec Department, and we have ceased receiving any new ones. Any ones that were originally accepted have been refunded and canceled until further notice. Again, like everything else, we're just kind of waiting on governor's orders to figure out when we can start getting back to normal. But again, we're not accepting any applications. All our special events that we plan have been canceled through May. And we're literally just trying to postpone. So hopefully things are going to be really busy in the fall or late summer.
And again, if you put a question in the chat box and I missed it, please feel free to post it again. It's easy for me to miss them sometimes.
Hey, Nikki, I was just wondering if anybody, you know, and this is a question to the group, is anybody really looking at more of a phasing in and what that's starting to look like? Because, I mean, we've accepted it. I mean, our community and recreation center, we sometimes, I mean, we could have 4,000 people in a day. I mean, so even for us to reopen, the question is, well, you know, what does that look like from a programmatic standpoint, an event standpoint? Is any other organizations, or I know a lot of you guys are in parks, but any, you know, recreation center people that are thinking about kind of how they're phasing that or what that process is starting to look like? Because I just can't imagine come May 1st, everything's just up, you know, one light switch, I think is how they were referring to it. So just curious if anybody else had any feedback on that.
Right. We've been thinking the same way, Tyler. But I think we're probably going to get some guidelines to follow. I don't think, you know, one night we're going to go to sleep and be in quarantine. The next day it's going to be All right, everybody go to your recreation center. So we've kind of been trying to plan for how many people, but we're hoping we're going to get some guidelines on that from the government. I would think we will, wouldn't you?
A few things I want to mention too is it was suggested to PRPS to do a community center roundtable for those who run community centers. And following up from a previous discussion, we'll also be doing one for ActiveNet users. So we are trying to get those scheduled now, and we'll have that information available. And a great suggestion from Ken Lear this morning is we are going to reach out to the Department of Health today to see if we can get someone to do a webinar for us about topics like this, like how this directly affects Parks and Recreation, opening our facilities, running our summer camps, and potentially the phasing of how we move forward into the summer and the fall. So I just wanted to mention those things while we're having this discussion, and hopefully, you know, keep an eye out on the website for some of these things coming up. But going back to Tyler's question on phasing, is anyone else doing that with a facility?
Tyler, this is Lauren from Conshohocken Borough. I'm sure we're going to be doing some phasing. We just haven't figured out what that looks like, how it looks like yet. If we're going to restrict how many people are in the facility at a time. We just haven't figured it out yet. And I know it's going to be coming up soon that we're going to have to.
We have a question. Oh, sorry. A question in the chat box with regard to adjusting the start date or reducing the number of participants for camps. Is the decision being left to elected officials, managers, or your park department? Who's making that decision?
Camp Hill Borough has an EOC, and they're taking direction from, the council is taking direction from the people who are running the EOC in the borough, which includes the main person is the codes officer and other people. So he gets all the information, and then he's letting council know that information, and then they're having discussions. But I think we're still waiting by the end of April to hear from the governor.
We're in the same boat. This is Karen from Lower Providence. We have an EOC too, and we're going off of that exactly like how Audrey's doing it.
Two things. If you're on the roundtable right now and you want us to be able to include you on the document we send in the recording, please put your name and email address in the chat box so we can make sure that we get you this information. And another really great question is everyone working 40 hours a week, and are you working from home right now? That's an interesting question. I feel like most people are working from home, but are you able to get 40 hours a week in? Don't worry, we're not going to tell your boss if you're not. I think my boss is on here, so I'm going to say I'm working 80 hours a week.
This is Christy from Silver Spring. Both myself and my program coordinator are working 40 hours a week right now. The township's actually coming up with work for us to do in addition to us trying to plan for fall activities and stuff. One funny project is we had to go empty our filing cabinets, and we are scanning everything in our filing cabinets. So yeah, we're definitely working from home 40 hours. I'm sometimes working a little bit more so in the evenings, just adjusting to everything.
Okay. So I see some people are working in a regular office. If you're working in a regular office, are you the only one there, or do you have other staff that are in there at the same time? I'd be curious. And then some people are working about 20 hours a week. Some people, like Christy, are doing different types of work. I know we've done so much COVID stuff, you know, stuff that we're not used to doing, trying to educate people on COVID, which, you know, distracts us from some other stuff. A lot of staff can work remotely, which I think is the benefit of technology.
Nikki, this is Tanya from Mechanicsburg. I've seen a lot of Facebook posts from individuals across the state that their recreation departments are involved with the food relief program like we are in Mechanicsburg. Is there anybody on this call that is involved with the federal government food programming, feeding children breakfast and lunch? I was just curious because I've seen it on Facebook.
Hi, this is Alicia from Malvern Borough. Our school district is hosting 2 sites in our area. One is actually within our jurisdiction. Our school district covers about 5 jurisdictions. But the school district just set up another location on the other side of town. But they're providing lunches, I think, 2 days a week where you can stop by and pick stuff up. And that's going to be going on for the rest of the school year, I was told.
Thanks.
I'm not going to read all the feedback from the chat box because it would take the rest of the call, but it's once we share this document, I think you'll be really interested to see the mixture of responses from how people are working, what they're working on. One question, this goes back to whether or not parks are open in general. I know most people have closed playgrounds down. How are people, what steps have you taken to prevent people from gathering in large crowds? The reason I ask that is Kevin from Harrisburg mentioned that, and of course now I can't find it. Oh, there it is. They had to block their basketball hoops. And I believe Derek from Upper Dublin on a previous call said that they either removed their hoops or covered their hoops with plywood. Have you had to do anything like that in your parks, just out of curiosity?
Yes, we have. I mean, one of the first things we did was rope off the playgrounds. We had a situation a couple of years ago with a neighborhood and basketball hoops. People coming to the park after dark, breaking the lights, turning things on, stuff like that. So it's kind of like a low jack system for the rims. It's like a crossbar that stops it. Those went up and the others were removed. And then we went to roping off pavilion spaces as well, because we were finding that even though we said no large groups, we canceled the organized rental, they're in open spaces, so anyone could pop in and hang out. So we've had to rope those off as well. We are monitoring, some of our neighboring municipalities have taken off the baskets on their disc golf courses. So we're observing ours currently. This past weekend it was rather crowded. So we'll see what's going to happen there as well.
Great.
Yeah, we took down our basketball hoops. We've put signs in the outfield of our baseball field so that wouldn't congregate people. We've roped off our playground equipment, even though it's been torn down like 2 or 3 times, and we've had to keep going back and doing it. Roped off our pavilion areas, took down our tennis court nets and everything.
So what kind of complaints are you getting? There's a question here about fishing season, and I know as Get Outdoors PA being one of my jobs, I see it a lot on our social media. People are complaining that fishing season is still open. What have you had fishing season complaints, or what other complaints have you received from the general public and or taxpayers? None. That's what I like to hear. What compliments have you received? People were happy to hear of another activity. I bet they were.
Back to the fishing, we personally haven't received complaints, but for anybody who's familiar with the Boiling Springs Lake, it was the hot spot last week when they opened fishing season, and I forget who owns right now the lake, but they received a lot of complaints, but it is not through us.
Okay. Dog poop complaint from, I believe it. I am on our bike path all the time, and I feel like because there's more people walking their dogs, there's less people picking it up. Some people have no issues. Complaints about people not wearing their masks. Yeah, there's not people wearing their masks when they're outdoor doing activities. You can't enforce it, but also I'm not sure it's always necessary. I walk by myself. I'm not going to wear a mask. I stay 6 feet away from people. It is what it is. 3 weeks ago, got a complaint about tennis courts still being open. Last week, got a complaint about them being closed. Complaints about guests not following social distancing, and the Rangers issue verbal warnings. I think it's hard with social distancing because you don't know if they're family members that live in the same household. So I found that interesting because I went past some parks and I thought, oh, there's people together. And then someone was like, well, they probably live in the same household. That's a good point. I'm not sure who admin is. That's their title, but it says their mayor made a proclamation about saying thank you to all frontline workers and made yesterday Appreciation Day. That's fantastic. So whoever that is, oh, it's Megan Krasinski from Percy. Thank you. Sorry. Sometimes on our chat boxes, it's hard to tell who is who. So thank you, Megan, for sharing that. I think that's fantastic. I think thanking frontline workers, and that includes our park maintenance individuals. I know that some offices still have staff working, taking phone calls, which includes complaints and registrations, and all of you still working in the field trying to make our events and camps happen. Thank you guys, because we all want this to happen and get back to normal. Debbie, actually considering making our paths one way so people would not have to leave the path to maintain social distancing. That's very interesting. That would be an interesting concept. Upper Dublin did that and it was well received. I never thought of that. That's a great suggestion. We only have a few minutes left. Just a reminder, if you want us to send you the information afterward, make sure you put your email and name in the chat box. Are there any topics or questions you have that we didn't discuss yet? You don't have to ask them verbally if you don't want to. If special events are canceled through May, are pools closed? That's a great question. We do have an aquatics roundtable, I believe, on the 21st, where we'll be going more in depth on aquatics. Thanks, BK, for the head shake. Does anyone have information on their pools on this call?
I mean, we're currently evaluating ours. 1 out of our 4 is always scheduled to open Memorial Day. The rest wait till the school year is out for the year. So we are playing it by ear and taking direction. We've given all our data as far as attendance, costs, things like that. And it's up to our mayor and our administration to make the final decision. One of the pieces that we keep in mind is we're also taking guidance from USA Swimming, because we have a USA Swimming Club that uses one of our facilities, including a large long course swim meet. So those are all factors that have to be taken into account in our decision making. But I don't see how Memorial Day is going to be a possibility.
Yeah. Tug says their borough is to make a decision next Tuesday. Tyler, they're evaluating their pools as well. It'll follow the same general guidance as their rec center. Debbie plans are to still open the pool, especially because the water needs to be treated and circulating. That was a topic of discussion on the Aquatics Roundtable. Definitely a topic, whether or not, you know, some people are draining, that can be detrimental to the pool itself. Let's see, Dave, oops, bumped up on me. No final decisions have been made as far as an opening date, but it will likely be delayed at opening for the water park. Upper Marion has not made a decision on pool planning. A question from Jane, is anyone setting a deadline for supervisors to make an official cutoff decision on camp?
When I brought something up like that, I was told to be patient.
I kind of feel like it's tough. Hey, it's Katie from Upper Moreland. I kind of feel like it's tough for all of us in this situation because we're such planners and we try to foresee how to fix things and what might happen and how to change it. And we don't have control over this situation. So I'm having a tough time communicating like with my supervisors because I don't have suggestions for them because we're waiting for CDC guidelines and, you know, government to tell us what to do. So I'd be really curious once all of your townships or municipalities start making decisions on summer camps, if we could meet again and see what their guidelines were or what those decisions would, you know, were.
Can you say that one more time? I was typing. I'm sorry.
That's okay. But what I said was, I feel like it's really difficult for us as recreation professionals because we always try to foresee issues and we try to plan, and we don't have suggestions, we don't have answers right now. So I know for us, I'm kind of stuck with what do I tell my staff that I've hired? What do I tell the people who have registered for summer camps? Because I don't have decisions for them. So I'd be curious for those of you, all of us that are in the same situation, once your board of supervisors start making decisions, I would be curious as to what it was based on, you know, what the recommendations are, because obviously I think we're all going to kind of follow the same suit, I would assume. So.
Yeah, I think that's great. We do, if these are helpful, we do plan on doing the roundtables for both summer camp and programs and events about every 10 days to 2 weeks. They don't always have to be an hour. If there's specific topics, we can cover specific topics only. That's a great suggestion once decisions are made, what they're based on. If there's, you know, if you need fuel for your fire for when decisions are made, one example was that one of our roundtables is after a meeting that's being held. We know all of our members, or we know most of them, and we know people on specific branches. So if you need fuel for your fire, we can put you in touch with other members who may be able to help develop that information that you may need to speak with your supervisors. So please always let us know, because I'm not saying myself or BK or Dan have the answers, but our members do, and we can put you in touch with those members. I mean, we had 76 people on this roundtable, which was incredible. And that just shows that you're here to help each other, and we can put you in touch with one another. So the more of that we can help with, whether it's these roundtables or putting you in touch with each other, that's what we'll do. So I think that's fantastic. Okay, so just about 1 minute left. I'm just going to make sure there's no other questions that are really pressing. Oh, here's a great question. Has anyone heard, I'm almost afraid to ask this question. You're laughing. Has anyone heard any school districts start talking about how next year school might be affected? I see, I didn't want to ask the question. I see, Katie, you're just shaking your head. That's how I know. You go like,
I would guess colleges are talking about it. Colleges are talking about online.
Oh, you're kidding.
No.
Oh my
I know Penn State here, I heard from my physical therapist yesterday that the May and the first summer session here at Penn State is being moved to virtual
Yes.
already. So that's already the first beginning of summer, but who knows what that means into the fall. So, and Keith mentioned just food for thought, the British Open, Tour de France, and the Olympics, all scheduled for July or later, have been canceled or postponed. Oh, and the SATs and ACTs for Pitt are being waived already for next year. So just some things to get you thinking for next time, not to stress anyone out. And there's a lot more feedback coming in the chat box. So what I'm going to do is I want to respect everyone's time. I don't mean to cut this short. I will leave the chat box open. If you have any final questions, I'm not sure what that one is. Okay, I'll catch up with some of these afterward. But if you have any final questions that you want us to ask, we can ask them on the What's Up PNR Facebook page or the PRPS Facebook page. And of course, we can put them on that microsite. Don't forget to leave your email. Thank you all so much for everything you do, for joining us on this roundtable. Don't forget to check the website for the summer camp, the aquatic, the urban rec, therapeutic rec. We have a ton of roundtables. We hope you find these helpful. And as always, if you need anything from PRPS, let us know. And we hope you stay healthy and safe and sane.